Okay, 2.4. Now we're talking about multiplying and dividing radical expressions. So we're going to adjust the size a little bit. So here we're going to send the -2 in. So -2 times 4, no big deal, -8. Now remember here we're doing negative times a negative, which means positive. And remember that 2 is an outie. Okay? That cannot go inside the radical. You cannot distribute inside a radical. The only thing you can multiply a radical by is another radical on the inside. So that 2 is going to stay on the outside and end up being radical 3. And that's it. That's all you can do. Number 2. This 3, when you send the 5 in, 5 radical 2 in, the 5 is going to multiply by the 3. When we send it into the second one, the 5 will multiply by the 4, and the 2 will multiply by the radical 2. I mean, the radical 2 will multiply by the radical 2. In, out, out. So 5 times 3 is 15, and that's radical 2. Plus 5 times 4 is 20. And we have a choice. We can put radical 4 or times 2, either way. So radical 4 is 2, so that's 15 radical 2 plus 20 times 2, which is 40. Okay, now we're going to FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. And say hello to Stewie. See, there's Stewie. Okay, so first, 2 times -1 is just -2. Outer, positive 2 times negative radical 2 is -2 radical 2. Inside, -1 times radical 6 is just negative radical 6. And then radical 6 times radical 2 is radical 12. And plus times minus is negative. Now the radical 12 is going to break down to radical 4 times radical 3, which simplifies to 2 radical 3. So what we end up with is -2 minus 2 radical 2 minus radical 6 minus 2 radical 3. And none of those can simplify. You cannot combine different radicals. Just like you can't combine x's and y's or y's and q's. Radical 2 is a different entity than radical 6, which is different than radical 3. And since none of those can be broken down, that's our answer. Okay, so this technically means 3 plus 2 radical 7 times 3 plus 2 radical 7. Now there's 2 ways to go about this. You can traditionally FOIL this. First, outer, inner, last. Okay, that's one way. Or you can do a shortcut. The shortcut is to square this, 9, which you get from first times first. And then to square this, which will end up being 2 times 2 is 4. Radical 7 times radical 7 is radical 49, or just 7. And then multiply these two and double it, which is what happens here, because you're going to multiply the outside and the inside. The outside and the inside, and you're going to get the same thing. 3 radical times 2 radical 7 plus 3 times 2 radical 7, and you're going to get 2 of them. So it depends on which way you want to do it. You're going to get the same answer. So 3 times 2 radical 7 is 6 radical 7. Double it, 12 radical 7. And then, remember, this is 4 times 7, which is 28. And 28 plus 9 is 37 plus 12 radical 7. Okay, quotient property. Basically what it's saying is you can split this up into 2 fractions. So we can just rewrite this as the square root of 16y to the 5th over 25 radical 25 c to the 4th. And then treat it like 2 separate problems. So the square root of 16 is 4. Y to the fifth is going to come out as 5 divided by 2 is 2, with 1 left inside. And on the bottom, square root of 25 is 5, and square root of z to the fourth is z squared. And we're finished. Now notice it says if you still have a radical in the denominator, you'll need to rationalize the denominator to get rid of the radical. So what we have here is radical 5 over radical 7. Well, what it means to rationalize is multiply by itself. Because remember, you can always multiply anything by 1, and anything divided by itself is 1, so radical 7 over radical 7 is 1. So now when we multiply, we get radical 35 on the top, and we get radical 49, or 7, on the bottom. What we did was we just got rid of the radical on the bottom. That's all. It's the same number. If you type in the square root of 5 divided by 7 in the calculator, you'll get the same answer as if you do the square root of 35 and then divide it by 7. Try it and see. Okay, this is already to this point, so we just need to rationalize. So 5 radical 3 on the top, and 3 times 3 is 9, square root of 9 is 3. Radical x over radical x, 4, radical x over x. And no, you cannot cancel those x's. Okay, so if you have something that looks like the problem below, you would multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. Okay, so example of conjugates would be something like this. 7 plus radical 5 and 7, 7 minus radical 5. Because what happens is when you end up multiplying these, the middle term is going to cancel out, and you're going to end up getting rid of your radicals on the bottom. So over here, we're going to multiply by 3 plus radical 2 over 3 plus radical 2. So 5 times 3 is 15 plus 5 radical 2. On the bottom, we're going to FOIL. So first times first, I'm going to do that over here. 3 times 3 is 9. I'm going to do the last times last, radical 2, radical 2. That's going to be minus radical 4. I should move that over a little bit. And how I got that was negative radical 2 times positive radical 2. Now I'm going to do my outer and outside and inside. Okay, so 3 times radical 2 is plus 3 radical 2. It's a tiny 2. And then minus 2 radical 2 times 3 is minus 3 radical 2. Look what happens. The inside drops out. And then on the bottom, I'm left with 9 minus the square root of 4, which is 9 minus 2, which is just 7. And that's it. Okay, so here I'm going to do 1 minus radical 7 over 1 minus radical 7. I want to come down here and do all the work with the foiling. So 2 minus radical 5 times 1 minus radical 7. So first times first, 2. Outer, negative 2 radical 7. Inner, negative 1 radical 5, or just negative radical 5. And last, negative times negative is positive, radical 35. On the bottom, I'm going to get 1 plus radical 7 times 1 minus radical 7. Now remember, the whole purpose of this is for the outer and the inner to cancel, because the inner is positive, the outer is negative 1 radical 7. Those are going to cancel. So really, instead of foiling, I just have to do Florida, FL. So first times first is 1, and last times last is minus the square root of 49, or 1 minus 7, or negative 6. So my numerator is 2 minus 2 radical 7 minus radical 5 plus radical 35. That's on the top. Nothing can combine because they're all different radicals. And on the bottom I just have negative 6. And remember, you cannot cancel the negative 6 with this 2 or this negative 2. Okay, you can't just select. You cannot cancel across plus and minus signs. And there you go. That's it.